I've admired Henry Archer's design language from afar, but never owned one. Then an eBay deal landed in my lap. I got it, and now I get it. In this video, I'll share why this chronograph is fantastic, why it's made me want more Henry Archer watches in my collection, and also the couple of details that just hold it back from being absolutely perfect. Hi there, I'm Dave, and this is Microbrand Watch, where we discover the independent watchmakers creating incredible value in a world of overpriced mainstream brands. Today, that means taking a closer look at the Kvantum Chronograf, my very first Henry Archer watch. I actually picked it up on eBay a few months ago for a complete steal. Look, the photos had me hooked. That sunburst green dial just leapt off the screen. But when it arrived, that's when things got really interesting. In person, that dial is even more captivating. The sunburst green finish just shifts beautifully from shade to light. At first glance, it looks a little bit pared back, but if you stop and take the time to really look, you start to see the intricacy in the detail. The applied indices, the polished hands, and the twin subdials are all carefully balanced to give a sense of precision without clutter. The case measures 41mm across, it's got a slim 10.3mm profile, and a lug-to-lug just under 48mm. On the wrist, though, it feels bigger than those numbers suggest. I think that's partly down to the dial design. The bezel isn't especially thin, but it feels like it is, which makes that dial dominate visually a little bit more than it would do. The case itself is stainless steel with a fine brushing on the surfaces and polished accents on those chamfered edges, which adds to that dressy meets sporty versatility. Now, I've been wearing it on two different straps, an FKM rubber in green and also a lovely leather strap, which is also in green, and both completely change the character of the watch. On the rubber, it feels sporty, modern, and ready for daily wear without worrying about sweat or rain or anything like that. Switch it to the leather, though, and it instantly becomes much dressier, more refined, a piece that you could happily wear with a shirt and a jacket. Same watch, two very different personalities, and both work beautifully with that dial. On the wrist is where this comes alive, though. This watch is a joy. It's thin, it's light, and it slips easily under any shirt cuff, so it works whether you're dressed up or just keeping it casual. Step outside, though, and that dial absolutely smashes it. In the sunshine, it just glows on the wrist. And as I mentioned earlier, it looks a lot bigger than those numbers suggest. So you really get the best of both worlds here. It doesn't feel bulky or heavy, but it gives you the wrist presence of a much more substantial watch. Inside, this one runs the Seiko VK64 meca-quartz movement. Of course, you've got quartz at its core for accuracy and reliability, but the chronograph module is mechanical. So if you start the timer, that central seconds hand glides smoothly across the dial. Stop it and you get that crisp mechanical action. Reset it and it snaps straight back to zero, just like a traditional mechanical chrono. The hands and indices are filled with lume that glows a nice icy blue in the dark, but looks neutral white in daylight. On a watch this dressy, lume isn't the main event, right? You're not going to be timing laps with it at midnight, but it's a nice touch of functionality that doesn't detract from that clean aesthetic. But as I said earlier, this is a watch that really rewards closer inspection. The subdials are neatly recessed and they add a subtle depth to the dial. At 3 o'clock, you've got a 24-hour indicator, and at 9 o'clock, the running seconds. Each one has got this fine concentric pattern. It's a gentle texture that just catches the light differently from the main dial, making them legible without standing out too much. At 6 o'clock, a date window is integrated really neatly. It's framed cleanly so it doesn't break that symmetry at all. Personally, I'd have liked to have seen it color matched a little better because the white text on a black background does grate and stand out a little bit. And for me, it just feels slightly disjointed compared to the rest of the dial. The handset, though, is simple and clean. You've got straight rectangular buttons with curved ends, but the chronograph seconds hand adds a lovely touch of visual interest with a little counterbalance at the foot. It's a small detail, but it gives the dial definition and stops it from feeling too plain. The indices are also very pronounced, with a white central element edged with polished chrome accents. Most of them are circular, but at 12, 3, 6, and 9, they switch to that same style of curved rectangle as the hands. And that ties the whole layout together really nicely. Around the edge, the thin bezel is met by an intricate and finely detailed minute track, which adds just enough structure to frame the dial without making it feel too crowded. Branding is also kept refreshingly minimal. We've got no logos here, just the Henry Archer name printed below the 12 o'clock and the model name sitting just above the date window. It's all very considered, very uncluttered, all reinforcing that Scandinavian design ethos. And then there are the smaller touches outside of the dial. The crown, for example, isn't just the standard round crown. It has this uniquely faceted, almost square-like shape that makes it very, very distinctive. It certainly gives the watch some character, but it also feels a little strange compared to the more traditional rounded crowns that I'm used to. The pushes, though, are slim and refined. They keep that whole profile sleek, and the whole case feels very deliberate about the way that it's been finished. Nothing shouts for attention here, but everything has been carefully considered. So has this watch won me over? Well, yes and no. As I said, this is my first Henry Archer, and it definitely won't be my last. Look, the build quality and the attention to detail are genuinely impressive. And although it's technically a chronograph, it doesn't really feel like one to me. It feels more like a dress watch that just happens to have a chronograph complication. The color for me is another big win. I wear green fairly often, and this dial just fits seamlessly, especially into my autumn wardrobe. It's the kind of watch that works with what I wear, not against it. But there are a couple of small niggles. The level of detail here is so intricate that my aging eyes sometimes struggle. The subdials, the textures, the date window, they're all beautifully executed. But sometimes I need my reading glasses just to really appreciate them, or even sometimes just to read the date. On one hand, that makes it rewarding. When you do take the time to look closely, you get the textures on those subdials in particular, which are just gorgeous. But on the other hand, when you just want a quick glance at the date, it can feel a little bit impractical. And then there's that crown. As I said, it's an unusual squarish shape, which gives the watch a lot of personality. But when you use it, it just feels a little odd. It's not uncomfortable. It's just different enough to notice. So what's the verdict? Well, sometimes a watch you don't expect much from ends up really surprising you. And for me, this Henry Archer Kvantum Chronograf has done exactly that. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on Henry Archer. Let me know your thoughts on the Kvantum Chronograph. Have you got one? What do you think of it? Or if you've got other Henry Archer models. And I hope above all else that today I've introduced you to another micro brand that you're going to want to watch. Until next time, enjoy your watches.